So now that I have created the project folder, which is called Flask Movies, let's start working on our project by creating the first file. So the first file here that I'm going to be creating is called index.py. So here inside our folder here, inside my folder, Flask_movies, I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to name it index.py. And it must have this extension py because it's a Python file. So it's going to be index.py and then hit enter. And then the first thing that we need to type here inside this file is that we need to import Flask. So I'm going to say here from Flask import Flask with a capital F. So again, it's from Flask with a small f, import Flask with a capital F. And then here we need to type app and then equals to, and then Flask and then name. Here name, and before the name here we have double underscores, and then after the name we also have double underscores. And this is kind of creating a our Flask application. We need to store that Flask object in the app variable, and then here we need to say if the name is equal to double underscores and then double underscores and then main, then what we need to do is that we need to run our application. So we need here to say app.run. This is just housekeeping stuff. Don't worry about these 2 or 3 lines of code. First we create an object, and then if the name is equal to the main, then we run our application. And this run, by the way, takes a parameter called debug. This debug can be true or false. If you set this to true, then you are going to be able to check out all of the error messages that you will be getting if there are any errors. And you need to set this to false when you publish your application, because you don't want to let people see the error messages that that they might get if your application goes live. So this is the kind of housekeeping stuff. And then what we need to do before we run our application is that we need to create a simple root. So here we need to create a root, and what I mean by root is just a URL. So if I say root, I mean URL. So just don't get confused. If I say root, it means that I'm referring to a URL. And in web applications, we always use the word root instead of URL. So whenever I say root, I just mean URL or a link. So it's technically it's a URL, but in web applications we just use the root keyword. And let's create our first root. So to create a root, all you need to do is that you need here to use the @ sign and then app and then .root. And then inside that root you need to pass the endpoint or the URL that you want to give to that root. So for the main root we just pass / because this is going to be our main URL. And then just below this line you need to define the function that's going to be executed if the user goes to this URL. So here I'm going to say def and then main, I'm going to name it main, and then I'm going to just return, let's say this is Flask Movies website or web application, and save. Click on file and then save, and then let's run our application. How can we run our application? Well, it's very simple. We need to run or execute this file index.py. So I'm going to right click and then here I'm going to right click and then run Python file in terminal. And this is going to just execute this file. So as you can see here, it's going to run our application and it's going to deploy our project or application on the local server. And it's going to give it it's going to run it on a specific port. So you need to copy this URL, this local server URL, and then open your browser. I'm going to open up Google Chrome because I'm obviously using Google Chrome. So I'm going to open Google Chrome, and then I'm going to just paste this URL and hit enter. And as you can see, it's going to return this is Flask Movies web application. So it worked, and this is how you can create your first route.